Well, good morning, everyone, and bonjour, mesdames, bonjour, monsieur. Si vous permettez, je vais parler en anglais après ça. I'm going to speak in English. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for being here, and I appreciate the effort that you have put in to be here this weekend. I'm honored to be standing before you as a UCI presidential candidate with the nomination of my national federation and the support of so many others. Like all elections, this election is certainly about policies and vision, but also about character. And that's why I would like to start by telling you a few things about myself. This journey started with my first memory, riding a tricycle in the garden of my home when I was just 4 years old. I joined my local cycling club, the Preston Wheelers, at the age of 14. I rode my first race at 15, and I won my first race at 18, all many years ago now. But you know, as I got older and my family grew and my career developed, I began to realize that I was better at being a worker for the sport than a competitor in the sport. And like many of you in this room, I've mainly done what I've done in cycling as a volunteer, holding down a full-time job whilst working for our sport. I've been a commissaire, a race organizer, a regional team manager, and of course president without a salary of British Cycling since 1996. When I took over, British Cycling Federation was in meltdown, close to bankruptcy, torn apart by conflict, with a declining membership, and it had no clear strategy for taking the sport forward. Sadly, this situation, a federation held back by conflict, wasting money and without good leadership, has parallels with where the UCI is today. We turned British cycling around with firm leadership, with integrity and hard work, recruiting and encouraging the right people, making sure they had the right resources, and putting a proper strategy in place. It was a plan based initially on success in the track disciplines at the Olympic Games, attracting increasing levels of public and commercial funding, and broadening that success to other disciplines and wider participation. And I'm proud to say it's been a success, a great success. And I want to bring the experience and commitment that led to that success to the leadership of the UCI. I offer myself to you as a proven leader, a consensus builder, a man who believes that in order to get things done, you need to listen to people and work in partnership with them. I have shown that in how I have worked in my own federation. But I also offer you someone with a deep love of our sport. I've been cycling all my life. I still ride every day if I can. Most importantly, I offer you someone with no baggage, no private promises made, no secret compromises, and no undercover deals. I am who I appear, a straightforward man who tells it straight and sees a great opportunity to contribute significantly to the sport I've always loved. I'm also someone with a vision of what the UCI should be and can be. I launched my manifesto in Paris in June, and if you haven't seen it yet, there are copies here today. I won't go through it point by point, as I know many of you have read it. I hope you have. So I'll focus on what I think are the crucial issues. There's so much potential in our international federation, but we absolutely must act to restore its credibility. The UCI's own stakeholder consultation process emphasized this as the top priority. Until we do that, we're always going to underperform. For many outside this room, our beautiful sport is associated with ugly things: doping, decisions made behind closed doors, manipulation of the rules, and regular conflict. This has to stop. The reason I'm running for president is I know I can restore the credibility of the UCI. I represent a completely clean break from the past. I believe there are 4 things that are key to restoring the UCI's credibility. First, anti-doping must be completely independent of the UCI. As the World Anti-Doping Agency, WADA, have confirmed, this is perfectly possible within the current code, and it's absolute common sense. We have to be honest. The UCI isn't trusted any longer with anti-doping, and we need to get rid of this conflict of interest. Rumours and allegations continue to circulate, and it's clear that people don't believe that the UCI can, on the one hand, promote the sport, and on the other hand, deal properly with anti-doping. I've detailed in my policy documents how this will be done through physical, operational, and legal independence, all headed up by a respected and ambitious chief executive who is trusted within and outside the sport. Second, we must end the conflicts. Very many of you in this room will have lived through many previous UCI conflicts with race organisers, with anti-doping authorities, with key members of its very own family, including some of the leaders of the national federations, some of whom are here today. The conflicts around this election process in particular have been another chapter which have hurt cycling. I certainly had no idea that the election would degenerate in the way it has. So, I hope we can quickly turn the page here and present a much more dignified public face to the world. So what can I tell you about my position here? Well, what I can promise you is that in all my years at British Cycling, I have never been in conflict with key stakeholders. Conflict is unnecessary and avoidable. A successful governing body promotes and defends itself firmly and assertively, not with confrontation and aggression. Do you think that in British cycling we came from where we were to where we are without having to negotiate many, many difficult situations? Of course we did. But we did it without confrontation and disputes. We did it through good leadership, excellent teamwork, partnership building, and integrity. The huge amounts of money spent on UCI conflicts in recent years would have been much better spent developing our sport. Just one example. How can we possibly justify more than 2.25 million Swiss francs wasted on an independent commission into the USADA report that never even held a single meeting? And that's only part of the money thrown away in the last year. And a year later, the issue has still not been resolved. A total and painful waste of money. Third, we must embrace transparency. The UCI is terrible at communication, internally and externally. And perhaps most importantly, it's almost as if it's forgotten who it's there to represent. You, the national federations. And we see this in so many ways. The management committee being bypassed on important decisions. No real structure in place to consult with federations, just ad hoc working groups, no proper financial information available, decisions made behind closed doors. All the way to small examples, National Federation presidents and delegates having to grovel around, asking UCI staff again and again for accreditations and access to the UCI's own viewing area to watch our key event, the World Road Championships. And, very importantly, this transparency must include an honest and independent investigation into what has happened in the past. This must be explored and done quickly in cooperation with WADA, and in a manner that gives us an opportunity to move on from the dark days of the recent years. It's now almost a year since USADA's reasoned decision, and what in effect has the UCI done? Nothing. And finally, we must introduce proper corporate governance. This includes having a clear separation between the President and the UCI management. This is normal practice. In fact, it's a requirement of proper corporate governance for any modern multinational organisation. The management committee should operate like a modern board of directors, setting overall strategy, with senior management tasked with delivering through a clear business plan. The president should chair the board, help set the vision and provide leadership, but shouldn't be a de facto chief executive officer trying to juggle every single issue, as has been the case. To me, one of the key dangers in leadership is falling into the trap of believing that your own personal interests are the same as those of the organisation you are leading. And the checks and balances of proper corporate governance will prevent such a mistake. Clearly, the Constitution will need to be reviewed, as will the election process. I think we can all agree with that. This presidential election has been absolute chaos and a disgrace for cycling. I fear it's going to get worse. We have to review the whole procedure and ensure that the mess that has been created this time round is never repeated. We need a dignified and transparent process of which we can be proud. Once we have our credibility restored, we will have a strong platform from which to build and grow. Interest in cycling is booming in many countries all around the world. The opportunities are there right in front of us, and I want the UCI to do the job it should be doing, which is to help unlock this massive potential. I want the UCI to refocus on its core mission of developing the sport. As detailed in my manifesto, this will include establishing a UCI International Development Department, which will create more talent pathways for underdeveloped nations so that we can tap into the potential talent that is out there. Even in Europe, there is a need for the UCI to help the national federations via the UEC to take advantage of the opportunities that are in front of us. An International Development Department will also be responsible for helping secure sponsorship and other funding so that all of the burden doesn't fall on federations as it does now. And when it comes to the Olympic Games, well, I've been a member of my National Olympic Committee for many years, and it's clear to me that the main issue the UCI faces is that of credibility, which has been hugely damaged in recent years. We must regain our status as a key international federation if cycling is not to lose ground to other sports at the Olympic Games. And let's be clear, this is not about one man at the IOC. It depends upon the integrity of the UCI as a world governing body and the credibility of our sport. I welcome better gender balance and the introduction of BMX at the Games. Of course I do. Both have been very successful, but this has been done at the cost of traditional track events. The recent history of cycling's so-called influence at the UCI has not been good. We shouldn't have had to lose classic events such as the kilometre time trial and the 500-metre time trial, the individual pursuit, the points race or the Madison to achieve gender balance and bring in a new discipline. If we really had influence, we should have been able to expand, not stand still. So I'll push for the reintroduction of those popular events. And we must stop this erosion of our programme. And let me just say this also about the Olympic Games. The London Olympic cycling events were a huge success. I think we can all agree on that. Performances were superb, crowds were enormous, television coverage was wonderful. And we in Great Britain worked very hard for that cycling success, and I'm sad that it's being undermined by the UCI's credibility issues. But let's move on. I also want to make sure that UCI has a clearly understood role in developing the business of cycling. We must make sure we have no conflicts of interest and that we do business transparently and with integrity. Global cycling promotions needs to be reorganized to reflect this. The UCI's resources should be used where the commercial market needs a catalyst for it to get momentum, serving teams, athletes, and event organizers. We should not be subsidizing a venture where there is no clear developmental mandate, where the UCI is in effect competing against existing commercial organizers. And this is a time when many formats, disciplines and events actually owned by the UCI remain substantially overlooked. We need much more effective exploitation of our own assets. The UCI needs to think about much more than simply selling the location of events to the highest bidder. We need to re-energize the commercial work of the UCI across the disciplines and across the world, working together to bring more money and therefore growth into the sport. An excellent example of territory that a governing body should be busy in is where the market has failed to deliver. Women's cycling, for instance. The UCI needs to lead the way in promoting women's cycling, whether it be alongside men's cycling or separately. And there are some key things that we can do right now. For women's cycling to flourish, it must be broadcast on television. So as a first step, what we will do is to have the UCI producing and packaging one-hour highlights programs for the Women's World Cup, Road World Cup, to be provided free of charge to broadcasters such as Eurosport. My team has spoken to producers and broadcasters and costed this. It's perfectly achievable. And for less than the UCI spent on subsidizing GCP, Global Cycling Promotions, last year. And that's just one example. What's clear is that we could and should bring about a massive change in the status of women in our sport in every sense. And to do that, I'll establish a Women's Commission and employ staff to support that, so that women can properly contribute to and benefit from the huge potential that there is in our sport. There's one final point I want to address. Pat McQuaid has continually asserted that I don't want to face a democratic vote in Florence. Nothing could be further from the truth. I have total respect for the Constitution and democratic processes of the UCI, which I have followed to the letter at every step. At every turn throughout my campaign, I have fought for a democratic and transparent process to ensure that the rules are applied and that it is the voting delegates who will decide who should become the next UCI president. So I want to make the following pledge to you. even if I were to be the sole candidate on the ballot paper in Florence, I would only accept the presidency if I received a majority of delegate votes. I say this to you today, and I've said it in writing to all national federations, and I say it because I believe in democracy and the rules of the game. So, in conclusion, let me repeat my main message. If we turn the page, break from the past, and restore the UCI's credibility, we will unlock the tremendous potential of this sport, which we all love and have sacrificed so much for. Please, let's believe that the future can be very different and so much better than the past. People told me it couldn't be done at British Cycling, and they were wrong. During this campaign, some people have said it can't be done, even that the UCI is beyond hope. They're wrong. Some people have said that I'm a puppet of other people, that I'm standing out of self-interest, that I intend to run the UCI from my home in England in my dressing gown and slippers. Well, the insults and innuendos have been shocking. And again, they're wrong. I'm offering you a different, dignified style of leadership. A period of calmer waters, of building consensus, of listening to you, the national federations, and of creating the conditions in which together we can push our sport forwards. Our sport needs to ask itself this: can it love itself again? Be proud of itself again? Can it have a leader of which it can be proud? My answer is yes, it can. And I know with your help we can do it. If you've recognized the truth in what I've said today, please help me deliver this change. Thank you.